Kinsey Schofield here. Welcome to Crown and Conflict, a series dedicated to dissecting the most riveting royal scandals in history. With insight from world-renowned royal experts, we explore the stories that shook the monarchy and captivate the globe. Speaking of stories that captivated the globe, Robert Jobson has a few of them in the Windsor Legacy, a Royal Dynasty of Secrets, Scandal, and Survival. After 35 years as a royal correspondent, Rob Job, you have put together the encyclopedia of everything you've seen and more with this incredible book. Congratulations on all of its success.
Thank you. It's one I've been thinking about for a very long time, because I realized that a third of the time that I'm writing about, or roughly a third, I've actually been a royal correspondent. So I've seen it more up close. And a lot of the people will be thinking, people like yourself, much younger, they'll be thinking that's history. People that I've met, from the Queen Mother to Princess Margaret, a lot of these people, and it's quite interesting actually that you realise how the past is so closely linked to the current and the more distant past that obviously I didn't witness. So it is an interesting way to draw the narrative together.
It's true. The cycles sometimes, then the parallels we see. That's one of my favorite parts of covering this, going, something very similar happened, 25 years ago. And I love you do cover that extensively throughout the Windsor Legacy. Now, in the book, you talk about the history of the House of Windsor over the past century and focus on its ability to survive and adapt. How would you rate their current adaptation strategy? Because Andrew has really jeopardized, in my opinion, 2025 for the family. I'm a huge supporter of the family. I love them, but I also feel like Prince Andrew has done them, and Andrew Mountbatten Windsor has done them no favors this year.
Oh no, it's a stain on their brand, and which one will never be, I think, erased. I think also the loss of the Queen Elizabeth, and also the illness of the king, both his cancer and Catherine's cancer, it certainly gave a sense of that the monarchy is not as stable as it perhaps had been under Queen Elizabeth. And then you have all the things that have happened since, but particularly this whole business with Congress calling Andrew to give evidence. Now, a lot of these were never going to happen. They knew it was never going to happen. There's a lot of grandstanding going on here, and I'm not comfortable, as I say in the book, about the way that he's not. There's none of these things that have happened against him have been proven in a court of law, but that's his choice. But it's also, you've got to remember that tragically the key protagonist in this, Virginia Giuffre Roberts, is dead. She tragically killed herself, and that judges and even Alan Dershowitz as well also called into question the level of and the quality of the evidence that was being produced against Andrew. So, but the thing is, they've taken this action themselves, the palace and the king. And in many ways, I think it's weakened their position by taking away his royal title, by taking away his, stripping him of everything like this. It's almost like they're saying, well, we think you're guilty.
Wow.
Now,
you are the third person that has said that to me today.
Now, we've seen this over in my book about, over Edward VIII and his close links to to Hitler, to the Nazis. Well, that was covered up by the establishment, very much so, until we got things that opened up from the Marburg files, etc. So, that lack of transparency is actually damaging, and the cover-up, as they always say in all these things, is always worse. Well, mostly worse than the crime. We don't know in this case if there's even been a crime. So my feeling is that by doing what they've done, that they've actually opened a whole can of worms, and we've already seen what's happening in this past week, where the politicians now are getting stuck into the who's getting what house for how much money and etc. And even people like Princess Alexandra, who was a real star in the 50s and 60s, who worked tirelessly for the monarchy, and she's not very well. She's not been very well lately, and now she's coming under fire for paying a peppercorn rent. You start to think, well, this all unraveled because they allowed people to start looking inside the can, and all the worms are now getting out.
It is alarming. I've seen those reports you're talking about, and I felt a lot of sympathy, as well as for Prince Edward, who has been such a hero over the last few years and swooped in to help out the monarchy in the absence of Prince Harry and Meghan.
Prince Edward, when they talk about these housing, for example, you've got to remember that Charles, of course, as Prince of Edward's home, was getting £25 million a year through the duchy or equivalent. Princess Anne on her wedding got Gatcombe Park given to her by the Queen. Prince Andrew, when he was a prince, was asked for a Sunning Hill Park to be built, which he eventually sold for £12 million or whatever it was. Edward didn't get that. Now, we don't know what he got. Maybe he got the lump sum to pay for Bagshot Park for the lease. But it does seem a little unfair that they're now, people that are actually doing the job are now under the scrutiny because of Andrew. But then again, it's not them. It's not Andrew that opened the box. It's the courtiers that demanded almost to pile everything onto him.
Well, what can they do about Andrew? Are you seeing the reports that he has until October 2026 to leave?
No, he'll
Um,
be gone before then. I think
you do okay, that
yeah,
was my
he'll have
concern.
to. I mean, I don't see him living in. I mean, they're talking about going to Norfolk. I mean, there's Wood Farm there. I think that would have been a reasonable place for him to live, where his father was living, and towards the end of his life, and where the Queen would go. They weren't even, if they weren't even given that, I think that's to live in. That's pretty sad. Um, Maybe he'll end up somewhere in the Middle East. Who knows? Who knows? But there'll have to be no extradition treaty, I suppose.
Ooh, it is such an unfortunate set of circumstances, and I really do feel sympathy for the king who we don't I mean, I know I say this almost every show. It is because I never see anyone else say it that I watch do this. Cancer. I mean, every week we know he's getting treatment for cancer, and that's got to be while keeping up with his responsibilities and his duties. We're looking at a beautiful state visit this week, and it's been gorgeous and fun to see him out and about and dressed to the nines. And I think because he always is out there and he puts himself out there, we forget that he is a man living with an illness.
Well, he is, and also so was the late Queen towards the end of her life, and all these issues with Andrew didn't go away for her. Then she had Harry, and now that Charles has had the Harry scenario as well, and his somewhat daft behaviour on the television again. You do look at these things and you think it's somewhat is beginning in a way, from my perspective, from after 35 years of covering this. And as I say, as a royal, somebody who basically believes in the system, but is constructively critical. I think they're losing touch a little bit with what the people want, and I think William will have a tough job on his hands when he comes to the throne. Yeah.
What do the people want?
Well, I think in Britain, I think they certainly don't want things to be too expensive. I think William has certainly got that from his experience going around the country. This Britain is not as rich or as Christian a country as it used to be. There's a different makeup in the country now. The role of the monarchy was intrinsic in that before, not necessarily going forward. So you've got to be very relevant. You've got to have the trust of the people. But you've got to also be aware, I think, and I think the king is very aware of this, is you can't reject the people that really do support you already by trying to reach out to those that don't. William is going to be quite careful to be relevant, to keep the trust of the people. And I think with Kate, they are more in tune with that. But when you see that wonderful state banquet and the tiaras, and we in the press, we love all that. We think this is great. There are many people that don't. There are many people that think it is indulgent, outdated. People in carriages, so he's long gone, and are more refreshed when the president of the United States turns up in the beast, So I think there are people that are not so interested in that side of things, even though it's part of the historic fabric of the country. And I think the palace and have got to realise that they're there. You're only there whilst you are relevant and have that trust. And if you lose that trust or you begin to have a less solid grip on it, things can happen very quickly, like they did for the Habsburgs in Europe. It wasn't World War II, it wasn't World War One that got rid of the Habsburg dynasty. It was indifference. It was a very sprawling monarchical system with cousins in different places and different thrones. But all of a sudden, it all sort of imploded. And within a few years, it was over after many hundreds of years. So I think that every monarchy, an unelected institution as they are, have to be aware about their relationship with the media, which is very important, their direct relationship with the people through social media. and the realization of the examination that they're under. Now we're seeing with Andrew that one little interview in which he lied has actually hugely damaged not only his own reputation, but the monarchies too. And they are doing their best to distance themselves from him by saying he's not one of us. Well, he can be called he can be called Mickey Mouse, but he's still the second son of Elizabeth II. And so he can't even, and he still be a person of interest to paparazzi, whatever his name is, because of who he is. So I think by just simply cutting him off, you are actually saying, you actually sort of almost putting being the judge and jury over him when he hasn't a chance to even answer the questions. And the thing that the palace are going to realize is if they know more, which is why they're acting so aggressively, draconianly, as some might see it, then they have a duty to tell the public what that is they know. Because if it comes out, which eventually everything does, and it's been covered up for 15 years, either by the late Queen or the new King, that is a problem for the institution, not the personalities, but the institution.
Do you ever read the label on a typical bag of chips? It's often a science experiment of seed oils, MSG, artificial dyes, and mystery ingredients. Masa is part of a growing movement to bring back real food. Masa's chips contain just three ingredients: organic corn, sea salt, and 100% grass fed beef tallow. Not only do these chips avoid the bad stuff, they are crunchy and taste incredible too. Snacking on Masa chips is nothing like eating regular chips. With Masa, you feel satisfied, light, and energetic, with no crash, bloat, or gross, sluggish feeling afterwards. You won't find yourself binging and feeling hungry. Personally, my favorite flavor of masa is the original. It's a clean and crisp taste. If you love masa, then you'll love Vandy Crisps. Vandy, Masa's sister company, makes the most delicious 3-ingredient potato chips I've ever tasted. My favorite flavor is Smokehouse Barbecue. How very Texan of me. Ready to give masa or Vandy a try? Use code Kinsey for 25% off your first order at masachips.com or vandycrisps.com, or simply click the link in the video description or scan the QR code to claim this offer. Don't feel like ordering online? Masa and Vandy are now available nationwide at your local Sprouts supermarket. Stop by and pick up a couple of bags before they're gone. Obviously the Epstein scandal is the nail, the last straw, the nail in the coffin. However, when books like Andrew Loney's come out, which are filled with unflattering stories, is that just gasoline on an open flame, or would that have started this process? Because we talk a lot about him being, him stressing his innocence in the Epstein case. I do think a lot of it is guilt by association. Even if people can put in their minds or get in their heads that he didn't associate with Virginia, God rest in peace, they have a hard time with the idea of him still willingly associating with Jeffrey Epstein post scandal.
But the bottom line is he lied. You see, it's not so much what Andrew wrote. I mean, Andrew was writing a book about them. I know he had a lot of issues to try and deal with them. And then that's what was going out of the story. And then all of a sudden, the Palace acted, which brought the book back into the forefront, which is an excellent book. And but what I'm saying is that the information, a lot of that information, we knew about. The thing that's come out is that the email showed that he lied.
Yeah.
Now that is the thing that damns him, because he lied. He was going to do the clear the air talks, and
I suspect he lied to the palace too, don't you?
I suspect he lied to Fergie. I suspect he lied to the Queen. I know he lied to the King. So therefore, they all believe. He even said to the Queen that the interview with Emily Maitlis was he thought it went well.
Huge win, yeah.
And as I know from my book, him talking about it's just a normal shooting party. Well, actually, there were all sorts of sex toys and things and everything, poppers and all sorts of things being handed out at that Sandringham and things. And the staff were quite shocked about it. So it wasn't some regular shooting
Not
party.
A typical shooting party.
Well, it depends what sort of shooting party you go to. I don't know. But the thing is, once you've been caught out and you lied, and it's been seen that it's a lie, really, it's very difficult, isn't it, to to do anything else. I don't really. I don't think most people make up their judgment there and then.
Yeah.
Why did he die?
But are we being too harsh on the palace? Maybe the palace said, we can't have, that's a liability. Somebody willing, because if you worked at a company, you would be terminated for lying to your boss about your actions while representing your boss.
Yeah, but that shows you. I mean, the royal family isn't a corporation, but it's sort of in this modern world having to face the same scrutiny and due diligence as a corporation. And so it
Mm,
has to. It can't just be all about, glass palaces and tiaras. It
mm,
has to keep up with the HR scenarios that they have to. And in that respect, maybe that's where people like Meghan Markle, when she went there, expected to have all this, HR in place and all these things like it was a corporation. The reality is it does need to update its systems and fast.
that's interesting. You said this earlier. You're I'm assuming that your research did find that Queen Elizabeth's death weakened the monarchy. What how could King Charles mirror the Queen in some way, shape, or form that would bring confidence to his reign? I felt like a lot of what we loved about the Queen was simply the stability.
Yeah, and I think also that the Charles as king was certainly winning people over in the first year of his, certainly the transitional stage of his reign. I mean, the way that he reacted and acted during the death and the post death of the Queen, I think was really remarkable. I think he showed great strength. At the time, politically, Britain was going through a lot of different prime ministers, and politically it was all over the place, really. And I think he brought a sense of stability there. But, and I think he would have started to look at all the things that were being left under his mother's reign undealt with, after really after the death of the Duke of Edinburgh and the longevity of him too. I think he probably lost a little bit of his iron touch towards the end of his life in dealing with issues such as all these houses and these peppercorn rents and all this. And I think Charles was going to look at all of that, but then he was struck by cancer, and so it has actually taken quite obviously and quite rightly its toll on him.
What can you tell us about his health? Is it hard to write a book and respect that part of his life? Because clearly it's a very teeny tiny thing that he's capable of keeping private.
Yeah, you have to try to keep it. Medical things are private, but we know that he's living with cancer, and that's not the same as saying at no stage of the palace saying that they'll come to a point where he's not living with cancer. I think
Right.
that probably says it really.
Right. And so were you careful at all? Did you find yourself asking too many questions, or did you say, I've been doing this for 35 years and I know
No, I
what
think
I need
yeah,
to know?
yeah. I think I know what I need to. I know what I need to know, but I also know that you've got to look at certain issues, the finances, the positioning of the monarchy going forward, what it will look like, what it will shape like. It was a very different monarchy from in 1989, 1990 when I started writing about it. The Queen Mother was very much still active. Princess Margaret was still on the sea. So
Can
it's
you
very different.
imagine if we were dealing with the forensic accounting and finance situation that we're dealing with today while the Queen Mother was alive? Because
Yeah, I think
she knew how to have a good time
we
and
should
she knew
have
how
to
to dress
spend
great.
spend money. Yeah, but I think that all those overdrafts were paid off in the end. But the thing with it all is there were a lot more royals. It was very expensive. Um, it was within a short distance of the. I mean, I think everything you judge things from post-war, but after 1950, really 52 for the reign of the Queen. You were only 30 years in, really. 30. The Queen was still relatively young. She was still very active, very much the woman who was traveling to, on big events, the big state visits. And Charles had his own agenda, and Diana was on the scene. Diana was the star, independent star by the time I was really doing it, although she didn't divorce, until they didn't separate until 92. But that time itself was very, very hugely difficult for the Queen. 92, I think actually people who weren't there wouldn't have experienced the Annus Horribilis, which was, I think, bigger and was probably the more damaging than say anything that Andrew's happened to Andrew, because Andrew was never going to be the king. This was involving Charles and Diana, the future king and queen, so therefore it was constitutional. I think the problems with William and Harry have escalated now to a point where actually, it's almost meant that William has had to cut off all contact altogether because he's done with it. And so that battle of that brothers, he was only going to be a battle of brothers if both were engaging. And it looks like William has stepped back and said, I'm not engaging. I don't have to. I'm going to be the king. And he can go on the Colbert show, whatever, and do what he wants because I'm not engaging in this. And that's what's sort of happening now.
This holiday, while others are chasing the rush, find your sense of calm with Peak. Peak is a luxury wellness brand powered by rare plants and cutting-edge ingredients, offering the perfect remedy for the season's hustle and bustle. Their science-backed botanicals, minerals, and vitamins support metabolic function, immune health, sustained energy, and radiant skin. In this festive season, choose serenity as the ultimate luxury with Peak. One of their newest essentials, the Deep Hydration Protocol, is a day-to-night electrolyte system that keeps your body and skin hydrated while promoting better sleep. Enjoy a focus boost without jitters or crash. The natural balance of caffeine and calming compounds keep you centered and alert all day. Nutrients in their matcha help curb sugar and hunger cravings, making it easier to stick to your wellness goals. I've been using the Deep Hydration Protocol every night for the past 2 months, and my skin has never looked more plump and dewy, if I don't say for myself. I wake up looking and feeling like I got enough sleep. Thank you. Thank you, heavens. Ready to gift the glow? Unlock 20% off for life for yourself and everyone on your list. Give the gift of glowing health this holiday season. Get started at peaklife.com/Kinsey. That's PIQUE life.com/Kinsey. Yeah, I feel like a part of me felt like that was Harry taking those pot shots was almost him lashing out because remember in the midst of Catherine's secret cancer battle, there's Colbert cracking jokes about William's affair.
I thought it was all false. So knowing that his father has probably got a state visit in April, return visit with the president of the United States, like him or loathe him, it's irrelevant. He's still the president of the United States, and the second son of the man who's coming as the king, who this is a very important relationship between Britain and America. People have got, they've gone to war together. Their economies are very closely linked. It's hugely important to Britain, this relationship with America. Yet he's on there and doing things, and it's casting aspersions about the very man that his father's coming to sort of to be the guest of. It's very difficult. It becomes very difficult for the king when he's got that happening, and it doesn't help anyone. It certainly doesn't help the citizens of Britain.
The president said, I am not going to pursue any more of the visa investigation, any more of the immigration. I'm not going to encourage it because I respect his father. I respect King Charles. And I have, this is not a political statement. It's just an observation. I have a very petty president. I have a very petty president.
I know,
Harry, do not challenge him because he can.
And also, but remember, it's not the personality that matters here. It's the office. It's the office of president that matters. It doesn't matter whoever the American people, by whatever system, have elected. That's who their president is. At that moment in time, you respect the office.
Yes.
And that's it. You salute the office. You salute the rank. That's the point. It doesn't matter if you don't like the guy who's the general or the captain. If you salute the rank. And I think someone of Harry's military background should understand that to do what he's doing is simply, poking the bear.
Oh yeah, a bear that could send you packing back to a bear where immigration is a huge issue. Maybe here in the States. Yeah, exactly. That is so funny. I did have a question while you were researching this book, because I know you had to comb through the pages of Spare for work years ago. When you were researching this book, did you find anything that conflicted with any of Harry's versions of events or any of the stories in Spare?
Yeah, I mean, not. I thought that what I would do in this book to avoid poking that bear is to sort of utilize the position that Harry had taken, and he's saying that's what was said, and then it was fact, and then seeing from my perspective things that were different. There's slight differences, in terms of, you look at, say, for example, the way that the Sandringham summit went, his mood, but there are slight differences, discrepancies. But I tended to say, okay, you've had your statement. That's your statement, Harriet. That's where your position is. I'll leave that, and I'll look at what other people are saying, and if it conflicts, it conflicts. I mean, for example, I had the story in there which he wouldn't have known about, that his father had, when he came over and after Charles had announced that he'd got cancer and told his son that he came over, that he arranged for a procedure, a man to come and say he had to go and have a procedure. The king didn't have a procedure to go to, but he wanted basically to cut the meeting short and not say to Harry, I want to cut the meeting short. So that sort of detail.
Did you get any feedback from Harry's team, or did anybody say anything to you from Harry's team about how that disappointed him or upset him?
I don't think they were overly happy, but there's certain. I mean, I don't know what the score would have been there actually, but they would have been surprised that I knew about it. I think, yeah, there were little things. I mean, I think that the one that interested me was about Lilibet, and I think that a lot of people saying, "Oh, remember there was a row with Harry said, oh, I told my grandmother that I was calling my daughter this after her." Now, I think that is true. He did, but he didn't. I think what my understanding is that she assumed he meant Elizabeth, the name Elizabeth, not Lilibet. So both of them were wrong, really, because then the palace advised people say, well, that's not, he never told me. And that's why she threw the paper on the floor. She was shocked to see that she was being called, the child was being called Lilibet. And but Harry had said, well, we had informed her, which they probably, from my understanding, did inform. They did inform her, but I'd said, we're naming her after you. And the Queen assumed it was Elizabeth.
Just vague enough. Do you think Prince
I don't
Harry?
think they necessarily. There may just been. It may not have been vindictive or tricky. I think there was just a miscommunication.
Yeah. Well, I think Giles Brandwith or somebody said she did not particularly enjoy staying on the phone with him. So maybe you're right. Maybe it was just a quick call and things weren't communicated properly. Do you think that Harry recognized how expensive Meghan's lifestyle was? You talk about the Queen being kind of alarmed by.
I think he did. I think
really?
He did, and I think he probably would have thought, let's not try and get this sort of information out. I think he would have definitely known that. And remember, he was having conversations with his father about money, and his father was saying, well, there won't be any more money coming from me, sort of thing, at that time. And that would have left him slightly shocked because he wasn't getting vast sums. And then he would have had to realize that actually, she would have had to realize she's not marrying into a billionaire's family with dresses of, we buy for 100,000, discard or something. This is there's a budget here, and I think that might have made him probably a little bit on edge because clearly he was besotted and in love with her and wanted really to impress her as much as he could, I suppose. But that's not really how the royal family would work. Just doing that sort of thing, really.
It's okay if you don't know the answer to this because I've asked several people and they go, I don't really know where the truth lies within this kind of conflicting tale. But there were reports that the Queen said, hey, continue to act if you want. You don't have to stop being an actress. And that almost conflicts with the idea that you can't have the half in, half out. Do you know if there's any truth to the Queen saying continue to act if you'd like to, pay for your own clothes?
I don't know if she actually said that. It would seem very odd considering that she was setting an agenda, to be like key envoy to the Commonwealth and lots of work to do. So I don't know when she would have been allowed to go off for 3 months and be on a film set. I just don't know how that would have happened.
Yeah.
But it's possible. It's possible, but it doesn't sound like it really adds up.
One thing that I had never heard before that really surprised me in your book was that the king was surprised to discover that Prince William wanted to propose with Diana's ring, given its history. I think that's a fair confusion.
Yeah, I think he was a bit. I think actually.
I mean, it is iconic. It's an iconic piece of jewelry, and everyone loves it.
It was something that he bought for his. Why? He bought for the woman that he was going to get married. Charles had it made for Diana. And I can understand why William wanted to give it to Kate. I understand that. I get that. But I think Charles would be thinking, well, why not do your own? That's the Diana's ring. That was for Diana. That was for our marriage. And I think that he was a bit surprised by it. Really.
Was it the right choice? I feel like everyone still loves looking at it, still loves it,
I
and
don't
we,
know. I don't know. I mean, it depends if you believe in karma and things. I don't know. I mean, it seems to have worked. They were a very happy couple. Um, but I can understand Charles's slight frustration.
it is an interesting, I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall during that conversation. Um, do you think that when it comes to, because you get into you get into a lot of Harry and Meghan stuff, but what is your prediction for Harry and Meghan in 2026? Because I have been surprised by a lot of what we've seen from them in 2025. Is Harry going to be at more Hiltons, in Toronto, talking to real estate agents?
That was a real shocker. I mean, particularly again, he got his timing wrong, didn't he, for that? Because just at that moment, they start revealing what the peppercorn rents were, and everything was being paid by his family. So he's talking about real estate. What knowledge does he have about real estate? In all honesty, never had a mortgage before this. I don't know what mortgage, if he's got anything on Montecito, but he's not really the guy to be talking about real estate. I mean, he's really quite sad that he's even gone there. I mean, just to boost. What's it? I don't really understand it. Maybe he's paid a good sum of money. I don't know. But the reality is, I think that they're plotting something bigger. I think they know that they've got to keep reinventing themselves, and so far they have. Maybe like them or loathe them, they managed to keep creating money and being on. I think that what we saw with this recent Colbert thing was a bit of the Harry. He fancies himself as a bit of a personality, like a bit of a showbizy star, by utilizing that star bubble of the Royal Family. But he thinks he's got the character for it too. All a bit, fun and games and acting, and but it's that playboy, that playful manner, which still draws back to the royal family and all the ginger stuff that he keeps saying. I personally think it just is a bit cheap, and he should realize that he's not 22 anymore. He's much closer to 42. So
In your investigation, did you feel and Lady Elizabeth Anson said something similar to Sally Bedell Smith about this? Did you feel like Meghan had pursued him aggressively and he was a target, and Meghan had no desire to stay within the fold as a working member of the royal family?
I think that she did pursue him. I don't know about aggressively. She definitely pursued him, and she definitely knew who he was, despite all the nonsense that we were told. I think she thought she would probably get a better deal out of the royal family than it appeared that she was getting. I mean, when she moved in with Harry, effectively, he was living in a cottage behind the facade of a palace, while where his brother and sister were this huge. They call it apartment 1A, but it was not. It was huge. So she would have looked at that and thought, well, how's this happened? He's the son of the king as well, and one's in a palace and one's in a two up, two down. And I think Oprah Winfrey even commented on it when she went to see it. And look, I think that the very fact that people like Oprah were coming to see her way before anything to do with Oprah and the interview shows you that she had a plan.
Mm-hmm.
And the plan was to be the new Diana, really, or to try. She almost followed the Diana, story.
Playbook,
Really,
yeah.
you know,
Panorama,
interview,
Oprah.
big, yeah, Oprah, and then you had the big interview in which she breaks some shocking revelation. I mean, it was very similar.
Mm-hmm.
The whole playbook, the fact the suicidal thought and all this, it was all.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that was played because I don't know. I simply
Right.
don't know how that would be. I mean, I would say that anybody who has those thoughts is pretty tragic, but it all happened very, very quickly, and I don't really, I was there watching it, and I must say, and I always do say that, they go on about how appalling the media were around her. The media just weren't. The British press were actually thrilled to have this actress that's attractive with their prince who was being more active, which was helping them sell magazines and newspapers. They really weren't bothered. They weren't bothered about ethnicity.
Yeah.
really a couple of stupid columnists were, a couple of ridiculous columnists who frankly should just
Who
were
lost their jobs because it
bitchy.
was wrong.
Who were
Yeah.
bitchy. It was totally ridiculously wrong. But I can assure you, all the photographers that they were all complaining about and the reporters are thinking, in a purely commercial sense, oh wow, we're in this
We
for
hit the
another 10
jackpot.
years.
Yeah.
We've still got, we can work, we can eat again. And
Yeah.
not that I need to eat again, but I'm just saying that the photographers in particular were thrilled. Yet the image that we get is that, oh my God, they pitched her against Kate and Kate was perfect and she was here. It just wasn't. Actually, they were thrilled that this beautiful girl had married Harry, and that there she was. They didn't really know her as a character. They didn't understand some of her ways, and I think some of the clash of cultures with the Americanization of things. Yeah, there was a bit of a jarring there, but it wasn't. It was like, wow, this is we're gonna sell this. These magazines are gonna sell, and these newspapers are gonna sell, and that is the thing that I don't think has really been explained that much, because everyone's going about as if the newspapers really care that much. What they care about is selling the newspapers.
That's
And they
a
really
great
do
point.
care about that. And the editors were thrilled that they got Meghan Markle. They weren't digging around in her past. So what was she was all that nonsense about, some of these awful columns, which were just cheap op-eds, I think. But the mainstream media were absolutely thrilled. Harry was the one who didn't want to repeat over the bubble blowing up. So it was like his mother. So it was him that was sort of being very negative. Actually, if you look at Meghan, she was quite good. She was brilliant out front and looking good, dressing good. She was playing the role, because that's how she's an actress. She knew how to play a role. It was Harry that didn't want that role to get too big, like his mother.
It is interesting because I feel like one thing, I don't know who Meghan Markle is any more today than I did when I first heard that she was on the scene in 2016, because she is kind of like a chameleon. But what I will confidently say is I believe that a few criticisms are she can become very insecure about just a few people saying things. Like, we know if she would have ignored Piers Morgan on his show, that comment would have come and gone, but she called to have him fired. I feel like
I think that was ridiculous. And also, I think the way she was very stupid in blanking Piers. If she'd made a big play for Piers when she first went over, I mean, he had a lot of influence and he could have actually changed the whole narrative for her. So she was a bit naive in that respect. But at the end of the day, I actually blame Harry much more than I do her.
I think that's fair, because he should have known.
Because he was so obsessed with her and wanted her to be his wife, and he was in love with her. He became almost a little deranged. Actually, he was like, everything had to be perfect. Everything had to be this. He had to have that, and everyone was found it a little tiresome. Really, I think the narratives only started developing, later on. I still think were mainly down to him. I think that he probably wanted out more than she did. I think.
I think that's fair.
He wanted a break, but he thought because he's such a big, he was always number one or number two in the popularity front. He thought his grandmother, the Queen, would allow him to be half in, half out, but he misread that totally.
Didn't he? All right. So this is about the Windsor legacy. I want to ask you, and maybe it's one word, two words, that's just a sentence. Legacy based on these characters you've gotten to know through the book. Catherine, tell me what the Princess of Wales legacy will it be? Is it the early years? Is it what a rock star she is next to Prince William? What is Catherine's legacy?
I think we're going to see that coming in the future. I think that she's the glue of the royal family, and I think she is actually probably the most important person going forward for the monarchy.
I'm a little in love with her after that state banquet dress. I'm a little in love with her.
She's the mother. She's guiding the future king, and she's the wife of the next king. So she has got such a crucial role to play.
That's a beautiful description. Yeah, I haven't even thought about the weight.
But also, there she is. She is somebody that went to work on a bus and knows what a mortgage is, and has watched two parents, one build their own business. So she is a unique person in this respect, because Prince William he can help the homeless, whatever, but he can't know what it's like. He can't know, what being ordinary is, normal is. He can't, and nor can Prince George, but she does, and I think she is a key character going forward for that respect.
That's a beautiful description. What about Prince William? Like you said, it's too soon, but based on what you've seen, where do you think he's trying to take his legacy?
Well, again, that'll be proven in time. But like Prince Hal in Shakespeare's Henry the Fifth, you won't see. You can see Prince Hal as this guy that's hanging out in the bars and roaming around with Falstaff. But actually, he won't. I mean, that's not William in any way. But this Prince of Wales, this heir figure, will be completely different to what the role of king is, because it's a different job, and it's complete. And so he won't even know what it's like to be king until he is king, and so he can't really. He can make all these things. He's going to make royalty with a small r. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. But until he's in the role, he won't know what he needs to do.
Well, I will say that we didn't get into it. Maybe that's a whole other episode, but Prince Philip stories aplenty in the Windsor Legacy. I love Prince Philip, and you've got plenty of fun anecdotes in the book. That this book will be available in the United States January the 6th. So go ahead and put it in your Amazon cart. Robert Jobson, The Windsor Legacy, A Royal Dynasty of Secrets, Scandal, and Survival. I appreciate your time so much today. Congratulations on all of the success it's had over in the UK. I look forward to seeing a lot more of you here in the United States as you promote it for the US as well. And if you're watching at home, agree with us, disagree with us, let us know in the comments below. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video with a friend. It's been such a pleasure to spend some time with you today. Thanks so much for your time, and everybody go buy this book.
Please do. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.